Auryn, welcome to the podcast. Happy to have you. How you doing? How's your day treating you?
Doing really well, thanks. Good to be here.
Yeah, happy to have you. So before we, get going and talking about Gnosis and what you guys do, what you do there, what it's all about. Tell me a little bit about yourself. Kind of curious. I'm sure my audience will also be curious what it is that got you in the space. How did you get to this point? Why work for Gnosis? Yeah, so give me a little bit of background, some detail.
Yeah. I have I don't know, a bit of a long and colorful backstory for how I got into kind of cryptocurrency and blockchain and just the space in general. I actually, before uh, going down the rabbit hole, I played basketball professionally, mostly out in Australia, a little bit in Europe, and kind of while doing that, I discovered Bitcoin at one point. I think from a news broadcast talking about the deep web, the dark web, and so I started poking around with Tor and kind of found a few marketplaces and stuff like that, and stumbled across Bitcoin. Everything on these marketplaces was denominated in Bitcoin, and so that's kind of where the rabbit hole started for me. And quickly, I guess that was in 2013, and around that time, Vitalik started posting about the idea of Ethereum, and so I quickly kind of fell down that kind of next rabbit hole, and the idea clicked really quickly.
Mhm.
The idea of kind of a programmable currency, essentially. Um, and the thing that got me really, really excited about the space was DAOs, decentralized autonomous organizations. Um, so I've been involved with Ethereum since kind of day one, but got really actively involved around the DAO in 2016.
Mhm.
Um, I founded the DAO Hub forums, which ended up becoming the kind of de facto home for the DAO. And so I had this kind of baptism of fire into, I guess, like creating, building, growing, managing communities through the kind of this meteoric rise of the DAO, and then it's kind of catastrophic failure during the DAO hack. And then from that experience, I guess made a bunch of connections throughout the Ethereum space, and have just kind of leveraged that to continue working in Ethereum since then. So I've worked for a handful of projects. First worked with Gnosis back in 2016, 2017, and then worked for a handful of other projects in the space, and started off again with Gnosis again last year. Originally working on the conditional tokens framework, which is the underlying technology for prediction markets like Omen, and then recently transitioning back into a more DAO focused role, helping to build out Gnosis's suite of DAO tools, mostly focused around the Gnosis safe.
Very cool. Yeah, why DAOs? Why is that something that gets you excited about, Ethereum, or just, broadly how it can be used in the space?
Yeah, I mean, I think uh, Ethereum aside, like just the idea of uh, organizations that I guess separate their logic from any specific kind of jurisdiction. Organizations that can create and kind of enforce rules on how they operate, how they govern themselves uh, in a way that's distinct from a legal system. And that's not to say that they should necessarily exist outside of the legal system, but it's just if I have a choice between uh, whether to trust a kind of a legal system that exists in or that runs in kind of meat space, and a um, essentially a self-executing program. Uh,
Hmm.
Assuming that I can have some reasonable confidence that the program is bug free, then I'll or at least has some reasonable kind of mitigating steps. Then yeah, I would much rather trust something that I can kind of audit like that, rather than having to rely on a legal system to enforce rules.
Yeah,
I think
absolutely.
the thing that really kind of excites me about that most is just that the um, the fact that it should open up. I mean, it has instances opened up this opportunity for much more kind of egalitarian organizations. It radically lowers the barrier to entry for creating an organization, kind of on the bottom end, and then also on the top end. It should, in theory at least, open kind of blow open the top end in terms of how large an organization can potentially scale.
Yeah, it's cool to be able to, that was like one of the first use cases that got me excited too. Ethereum was like one of the first things that just got me like really wanting to be a part of the space. Just seeing like all the things you could do with it, especially DAOs, and the fact that you could have some type of governance that's completely, autonomous or completely, decentralized. It's really, really cool. It just still worries me though, after the DAO hack back in like 2016, like that feels like ancient at this point, so long ago, like what, a whole 5 years.
Right, right.
But yeah, it's the one thing that, kind of makes me a little skeptical about DAO still. And then, can anyone ever really come to agreements on anything? I don't know, maybe in your opinion, do you think it's progressed enough to be like viable to use DAOs, or do you think they still have a lot of work?
Yeah, I mean, I still think there's a ton of work to be done, particularly in making them accessible, making them easier to use. And I think that's part of what I'm currently working on. But in
Mm-hmm.
terms of like whether they're secure enough to actually entrust significant amounts of value in, I would say yes. There's a handful of frameworks that have matured to that point that, like I'd personally be comfortable entrusting a bunch of value in it. I uh, I don't know. I went through a pretty big grief period with the DAO and was pretty down
Mm-hmm.
on most of the frameworks for a while. But like I was very skeptical of new efforts popping up to kind of embark on this mission again. But I think that the not like the silver lining from the DAO hack is that it really forced the hand of the whole space to take security seriously, and so like the tooling around auditing and kind of securely building smart contracts that exists now as compared to when the DAO was written is a night and day difference. There's a handful of protocols that have been running effectively now with millions and billions of dollars at stake
Mm-hmm.
for a number of years without any exploits. And so I think like I'm comfortable in those situations saying yes, this is a secure place to park funds or to control assets or to control systems in a kind of more decentralized way.
Could it still be improved though, or do you think it works the way it should work?
I mean, it absolutely could be improved. There's always room for improvement. I think the big challenges in terms of improvement right now, in my opinion, for the DAO space, are probably there's a handful. The biggest one that's been a pain point in the last like year and a half has been finding a way to enable voting in an environment that is, or participation in an environment that is not cost prohibitive. And so what I mean by that is like you have DAO frameworks and multi-sigs and whatnot, say like Aragon or Moloch as DAO frameworks, where voting on mainnet is essentially cost prohibitive. Like it's so expensive for users to come and vote that they just don't do it. And so in the case of DAOs where you have a minimum quorum to reach, then it's really, really difficult to often reach that minimum quorum with on-chain voting. And then in the case of say like a Moloch DAO where there is no minimum quorum, you generally end up in a scenario where everything passes with one vote, and no one other than the person who's financially motivated to get this vote to pass, to get this
Mm-hmm.
proposal to pass, actually participates in the governance, which is fine for Moloch. Like that's a design choice. It is essentially their version of lazy consensus. But in the example of protocols like Aragon, DAO Stack, compound governance, the not being able to kind of convince people to actually vote in a proposal means that, or can mean that the protocol just becomes stagnant. So that is a really, really key issue.
Mm.
And then I think the other issue, once you get beyond making everything kind of cost effective, making it so like it's not cost prohibitive for voters to participate. The next issue, in my opinion, is at least from a technical point of view, is the collusion and bribery resistance. So right now, most just about, I think literally every framework, votes are out in the open. So you I can see how you voted, you can see how I voted, and that's, I think, to a lot of people seems like a good thing. Um, and it's probably in some ways still better than the status quo of kind of totally opaque decision making in some traditional organizations. But from the point of view of being able to kind of capture that governance process, it's a really bad feature, or it's a bug, not a feature. And so I think, yeah, the next really important evolution in DAOs is going to be enabling essentially secret voting. So like transparent decision making with secret inputs, transparent outcomes with secret inputs. And there's some really great research that's being done on that, or kind of actually some really great implementations in MACI, the minimal anti-collusion infrastructure, that's kind of enabling for these kind of secret votes using zero knowledge proofs, but nothing that's made it into production yet in terms of a fully fledged kind of DAO framework where you can use that system to actually create proposals and vote on them in a DAO.
When do you think we'd see more real world use cases of DAOs like being used in commercial enterprise and stuff like that? Or do you think it's like just a back end technology on blockchain that, you know, most people won't hear about?
I mean, I guess it depends on what you mean by commercial use cases. I think there's already a ton of use cases out there, or a ton of people using it in the wild. I mean, they're typically Web3 native organizations because that's where it makes sense to use them. You know, when you have valuable assets and systems that you need to control in a decentralized way, that are kind of native to Web3, then it makes sense to have a Web3 governance system. So like, I don't see it being adopted to run Microsoft anytime soon, because none of their, you know, the vast majority of their assets are not on a blockchain. But, you know, Uniswap or Yearn or Aave, or, you know, any of these protocols that are Web3 native, then yeah, they have massive treasuries and hugely valuable systems that it definitely benefits from having decentralized control over. And so that's where you've seen adoption first. The DeFi summer last year, this kind of DeFi explosion really highlighted the need for and helped to push the governance space forward, or push the DAO space forward.
Yeah, definitely DeFi has. It's been a huge use case for it. You know, I think my question more or less was tailored toward like the big, you know, Fortune 500 companies, you know, that you know, kind of dictate and run society today. You know, a lot of them are even, you know, they're taking massive crypto positions, and like Tesla, for example, buying a huge part of their portfolio in Bitcoin, and the fact that they were able to actually turn a profit on that, you know, showed that they were able to make more money in Bitcoin than they have in a single year selling cars. So I guess technically that makes them like a crypto company. I don't know. Maybe they could turn their organization some degree into a DAO to manage that. Like if you're that big of a company and you're actually making more money in crypto than you are in what you actually do, you know, I don't know, maybe there's a place for Tesla to have a DAO at some point, at least to manage some things, or another major Fortune 500 company, or, you know, that we see on TV every single day. I guess that's kind of like where my question was going, because you just don't see that kind of use cases yet. And I'm wondering if that'll ever be like a public thing, or if that's something that would just work for them on the back end.
Right. I mean, it could be, and I think it really depends on like the the outcomes that they're trying to build for. Like
Hmm.
if Tesla is, if they were trying to build for an outcome where uh, all of their voters, or sorry, all of their, say, shareholders, for instance, like if they wanted to go and tokenize all of their stock and then give all of their shareholders uh, essentially direct input into organization level decisions, then perhaps setting up a DAO structure is an appropriate way to do that. Given the amount of trust, I guess, that's involved in a real world organization, one that controls a bunch of real world assets that are secured essentially by a legal system. Um, I don't know that it necessarily makes sense for an organization, uh, again, like that grounded in the real world or the physical world, to be structured like that. But then again, I mean, I could definitely see applications of that. Like one really concrete example that I would very much love to see in the real world is more kind of platform cooperative type organizations. You can imagine something like Uber, where essentially you uh, automate the center of the organization, where rather than having Uber controlling uh, everything, as like the management of Uber controlling
Hmm.
the platform, you automate that with a DAO and push kind of decision making power to the edges and ownership to the edges. So you have then essentially a platform similar to something like Uber, where the drivers and the people building the platform uh, own it and
Hmm.
take profits from it, or yeah, maybe own it and can decide what to do with the revenues, I guess, is probably the better way to decide it, collectively decide what to do with it. So I think those kind of situations are probably the lower hanging fruit on where you could envision a DAO type structure making sense in a more traditional organization. Is
Hmm.
Yeah, probably like those kind of sharing economy type scenarios, or platforms, web based platforms, where you could imagine setting up a platform cooperative type setup that's governed by
Hmm.
some kind of DAO structure.
Dude, decentralized Uber would be like the coolest thing ever. I wonder if anyone's actually tried doing that yet. Like being able to, work for a decentralized essentially work for a DAO, and you can get paid in crypto, and you don't necessarily have anyone over you telling you can't do it. And it's all peer to peer. That'd be pretty cool. Have you heard of anything like that or no?
Uh, I mean, there's been various attempts at creating kind of more fair, more equitable versions of Uber.
Hmm.
I'm not aware of one that's specifically using blockchain tech to enable it.
Hmm.
Um, and similarly for things like Airbnb, I'm aware of like there's was it Fairbnb, I think, which is a kind of cooperative model version of Airbnb, but I'm not aware of one that's using specifically blockchain. Actually, no, there is one
Hmm.
called Trips that was trying to use blockchain tech to build out something similar. But I'm not aware of what their kind of current status is, whether they're up and running.
That's an awesome business idea. I got to write that one down. Maybe I'll do it.
Yeah,
Figure it
let me
out.
know. I would
Let,
love to help out, see it grow.
yeah, I'll let you know if I ever get around to doing something like that. But let's talk about Gnosis a little bit. Because I'm curious. I've heard about it for like a long time, but I don't know a whole lot about it in depth. So tell me what it is a little bit, like in a nutshell. Like, what are you guys doing there? What's the mission?
Yeah. So, I mean, essentially, Gnosis builds kind of tools, infrastructure, and kind of new market mechanisms for the Ethereum ecosystem and for the DeFi
Hmm.
ecosystem. The company was, or the organization was originally founded around the idea of enabling and creating prediction markets, and then because they were so early, I guess there was a lot of kind of requisite infrastructure that didn't exist, and so a huge amount of Gnosis's efforts have been put into essentially creating secure infrastructure for the Ethereum ecosystem, to the point now where that's become really core piece, or kind of the biggest piece of Gnosis efforts. And the I guess kind of major output from that is the Gnosis safe, which is the kind of de facto account standard for any multi-sigs and increasingly kind of DAO-like organizations in the Ethereum space. And I guess as a just to kind of talk briefly about what it is, it's essentially a Gnosis safe is a multi-sig contract, but kind of beyond that, it's at its core essentially just this modular account standard contract where you can plug in all kinds of different control structures to modify how it acts, modify like who is allowed to make it execute transactions and under what conditions. So it's this really flexible account standard, and where part of my current role is setting up tools for making it much easier to build out DAO structures with the Gnosis Safe at its core, but then also to make it interoperable with the other DAO frameworks to make it, again, much more of a help make it much more of a kind of ubiquitous account standard for organizations, and particularly to kind of enable progressive decentralization for organizations. And then back to kind of Gnosis in general, over the last couple of years, Gnosis has kind of experimented with a whole bunch of different kind of novel market mechanisms. So the Gnosis crowd sale was run via a Dutch auction, which was the first example of that being run on a blockchain. Since then, Gnosis has launched several decentralized exchanges, kind of iterated over different designs on decentralized exchanges, all using variations on Dutch auctions and batch auctions and whatnot, and has recently landed on I guess two kind of decentralized exchange-like mechanisms. One is Gnosis auction, which is a way of running a essentially auctioning off tokens in a batch auction with a kind of uniform clearing price. And the really neat thing with that is that it allows it basically stops there being race conditions on securing value, and avoids situations where you can kind of extract value from the people selling tokens by essentially being the first person in to scoop up all the tokens, which has been pretty common in a lot of token sales up to this point. So yeah, that's a pretty interesting piece of technology. Again, like the key point there is that it creates kind of a uniform clearing price for all participants. Everyone either gets the price that they were willing to pay or a better price. So it's kind of more efficient for everyone involved. Everyone kind of gets at least what they wanted, and it limits the ability for other users to kind of extract value out of the system. And then taking that kind of mitigation of value extraction a step further, the latest version of the Gnosis protocol is this essentially decentralized exchange protocol designed specifically to circumvent the minor extractable value. It's now called maximum extractable value. I think it just got rebranded, which has been a kind of really hot topic in the Ethereum space for the last maybe year. Essentially, it's just talking about the value that can be extracted from Ethereum transactions if you have the power to reorder transactions or to kind of change inputs and outputs. And so typically that's miners, but it can also be just other actors kind of submitting transactions with high gas prices and things like that. So there's a whole bunch of software that's been developed over the last year and a half to enable people to extract as much value as they can out of transactions, or out of the mempool. And so Gnosis protocol is a decentralized exchange that essentially helps users to mitigate minor extractable value by batching a whole bunch of orders together, and then has some additional benefits where it can where you essentially end up with again a surplus on what you are hoping for, through a variety of different mechanisms. So yeah, those are the two kind of, I guess like three primary things that we're working on right now. Other projects are the Open Ethereum client node software. So Gnosis maintains that. It used to be called Parity. Gnosis kind of took it over and rebranded it a few years ago. And then the project that I'm currently working on, which is creating DAO tools for the Gnosis Safe and the Ethereum community.
Mm-hmm. Do you guys have any like recent use cases where Gnosis is, being applied to help in some type of way?
I mean, the Gnosis Safe currently secures a few $billion worth of assets from, basically every major DeFi protocol at the core of, or just about every major DeFi protocol at the core of the system. They have a Gnosis Safe securing their assets and systems. So I think that's probably the biggest example of Gnosis technology being used. I think it controls or something like 2 to 3% of the ether in circulation is stored in Gnosis safes. I'd have to pull up a dashboard somewhere to double check exactly what that percentage is, but it's a few percent of the ether supply is stored in safes, and it's it's kind of rapidly becoming, I think, an account standard for anything that's essentially needs more security and or logic than what you can get out of an EOA account, out of a public key, private key account.
Cool. What's the roadmap look like for you guys? The rest of 2021. What are you guys working on or excited about that you can share, that you want to share? Like, do you guys have partnerships coming up? Do you have just key dates that people should be aware of?
So in terms of key dates, I don't have any that I can kind of rattle off the top of my head. We do have a pretty much a non-stop stream of releases. Our comms team is well and truly overworked because we keep kind of rolling stuff out. The big things that were just announced recently, and I think one of the most kind of important announcements is the Gnosis Safe rolling out support for layer 2s and side chains. So as of right now, it's available on mainnet, XDAI, and Rinkeby. And over the coming months, it will start to roll out support for essentially any worthwhile Ethereum layer 2 or EVM compatible side chain. So like the immediate targets are Arbitrum, which is an optimistic rollup, and then Polygon, which is another XDAI-like side chain, a little bit different, but kind of similar there. And then Binance Smart Chain. And then beyond that, looking at other networks like Optimism and ZK Sync, and then a whole bunch of other EVM compatible side chains or blockchains. And so that I think is going to be really important because it again brings that kind of more secure account standard to each of those other execution environments. And then beyond that, the thing that I'm really excited about is essentially, I guess I'm biased here because it's the thing that I'm kind of working on, but I'm really excited about enabling this, I guess, multi-chain ecosystem design where you have, you maybe say pick one chain that you want to be the home of your organization's decision making. So you may deploy a DAO framework there, or you may have a Gnosis Safe deployed there, and then using some of the technology that I'm currently working on, what we're able to do is essentially bridge your decision making from that home chain over to execution in a Gnosis Safe deployed on any of those other chains. So you can imagine, I talked earlier about one of the big issues in the DAO space is essentially the cost of engagement, the cost of voting. And so one way to mitigate that is to go and put your decision-making mechanism on a cheaper execution environment like XDAI. So there's a whole handful of organizations that have gone and done that. Projects like Raid Guild and OneHive have gone and deployed different DAO structures to XDAI. The problem that gives them, though, is that they are then kind of siloed into the XDAI environment to a certain extent, or at least like the organization, the DAO software is unable to make calls out to other chains to make things happen beyond just kind of sending tokens out across the various bridges. And so some of what we're currently working on, we recently deployed or released a project called SafeSnap that lets you bridge kind of off-chain decision making to on-chain execution. And we have another a tool called SafeBridge, which makes use of the arbitrary message bridge between XDAI and mainnet. And so what it will let you do is, say you've got an organization deployed to XDAI, it would allow you then to control a Gnosis safe on mainnet. And what we imagine, or what we kind of envision happening here, is actually organizations becoming this kind of constellation of different accounts across a whole bunch of different networks. So you may have you may choose XDAI as your kind of organization's home where decisions are made, and then set up this constellation of different Gnosis safes, one on mainnet, one on Polygon, one on Optimism, so on and so forth, and use those as essentially your organization's avatar on each of those networks, but control them all from your one home chain where you make decisions, and then just kind of use the SafeBridge or SafeSnap to kind of cause execution on any of those other environments. And so this kind of interdimensional multi-chain organizational setup, I think, is going to be a really fun thing that evolves over the next couple of months, and a really key part to allowing organizations to kind of extend their tendrils out beyond the execution environment that they live on.
Yeah, the whole multi-chain aspect is pretty cool. I thought you guys were more like just based with Ethereum projects and stuff like that, but no, that's cool to hear about. And I guess it gives you guys more to work with and more like interesting areas to apply Gnosis and to grow. Where can people go to actually learn more about all this stuff and what you guys are doing? And should they go to, like a certain Discord or Telegram channel?
Yeah, I mean, I think the best places to find out more about Gnosis are one, the website, gnosis.io. Two, come and follow us on Twitter. It's GnosisPM, @GnosisPM. And then three, jump into our Discord server. It's chat.gnosis.io. Yeah.
Perfect. Sounds good. Auryn, thanks for taking the time to come on the podcast and talk about Gnosis and DAOs and all this cool stuff and everything that you guys are doing. I'm very excited to see how it all plays out next rest of the year and all the things you guys got going on. It's cool. I've heard of Gnosis for such a long time. I've always wanted to kind of dive a little bit deeper into it to understand it. So really appreciate you taking the time.
Yeah, absolutely. Thanks for having me. This was a lot of fun.
Of course, anytime.